Hello everyone, back tuning into the ENSO update for July 2017. So every month so far this year, we've been looking at the sea surface temperature anomalies in the ENSO region, which is the equatorial Pacific Ocean, to see whether we're going to go into an El Nino event. A couple of months ago, it looked as though we was going to have an El Nino event, but over the past couple of updates, it's actually gone more towards ENSO neutral. We have sort of gone away from an El Nino event for this year. We'll see what the latest situation is in terms of the sea surface temperature anomalies in the equatorial Pacific in a moment, and whether we are indeed going to go into an El Nino event or not. Just saying, earlier today, as always on a Saturday at Gasworthy's, we released the weekend forecast. So you can find videos out on the homepage, also a written version. You get to that from the buttons at the top of the page. Going to be quite an interesting week's weather. Tomorrow we're going to have the season one roundup for the autumn, only the second one that we've done this season. So that will be coming up at Gasworthy's tomorrow morning. Get something like 10 or 11 long-range models together and see what they are all showing for the autumn. So quite a big weekend actually coming up here at the website. Hope you enjoy all of the updates. So this is only the penultimate ENSO update for this year, can you believe? Because next month we'll have the last ENSO update, and then after that we get to September, and we sort of merge the ENSO stuff into the winter update, because ENSO is predominantly an important factor for the winter period for us. So we will be merging all of this ENSO stuff into the winter updates from September, which will mean we won't need to do any more ENSO updates after next month. So there's only one more ENSO update to go this year after this update is done and dusted. We are really getting on with the year now. Can you believe it? Already starting to think a little bit about the ENSO updates and the winter. So I better get on with the penultimate ENSO update. We're going to start, as we usually do, with the cold and warm episode by season chart from CPC and NOAA. So this indicates every ENSO event throughout the years, going right way back to 1950 on a tri-monthly basis. So, for example, in the year of 1950, our first year, we actually had a La Nina event going on, a cold event, with all of these negative blue numbers here throughout the whole of the year, indicating a La Nina through 1950. Well, we scroll down through the decades, scroll down through the 60s, through the 70s, through the 80s, through the 90s, into the 2000s, and we arrive at 2017 this year. And our latest number in the box that we've got for this year is for the tri-month period April, May, June, and it's coming out at 0.5 degrees. I'll talk a little bit more about that because it's quite an interesting number, but just to explain where we've been with ENSO over the past couple of years. So back in 2015 and in 2016, we had the Super Nino, of course, these bright red numbers and high numbers as well. For example, plus 2.0, plus 2.2, plus 2.3. That's a very strong, possibly the strongest recorded El Nino on record through the year of 2016 and 2015 into 2016. Now, through the middle of 2016, we unravelled that very quickly and went back to ENSO neutral. And then in the second half of last year, we had a really, really weak cold event, a really weak La Nina. Typically, after an El Nino event, after a warm event, you'll get a cold event. But this one was a very, very weak cold event. Just about the weakest La Nina ever recorded. There might be one more, but it's even weaker than this. But it certainly was one of the weakest La Ninas on record. And then into 2017, we have very quickly, we unravelled that. We went back to ENSO neutral in the first couple of tri-monthly periods. And we stayed at ENSO neutral really throughout the year so far. As I say, our latest number in the box is this one, 0.5 for the tri-monthly period April, May, June. That's quite an interesting number because that does reach the threshold for El Nino. To get an El Nino designated, get a warm event designated, you have to have the temperature in terms of the sea surface temperature anomaly in the central part of the equatorial Pacific at or above 0.5 degrees above average. So that number does get us to El Nino. The problem is that you have to get it designated, you have to have that number or higher over 5 tri-monthly periods. So for the next 4 boxes, we have to have that number or a higher number to get the numbers going red and have an El Nino designated. I don't think we're going to be able to do that. But certainly for the tri-monthly period of April, May, June, we did just reach an El Nino type threshold number. Well, this is how things were looking in terms of the sea surface temperature anomalies in the equatorial Pacific Ocean last month. We did the last ENSO update. This is from the 22nd of June. And you see we was essentially at ENSO neutral. We're looking at this region just here from Peru over there to Indonesia over here, and this of course is the equator of the Pacific Ocean. So in June we was at ENSO neutral, albeit on this slightly warmer side of ENSO neutral, as we've already seen from those numbers in the boxes. This is the very latest. This is from the 27th of July 2017. These are all coming from NOAA, by the way. And you see there's been very little change over the past month. Again, we've got Peru over here to Indonesia over here. Very, very little change. If anything, possibly we've seen a little bit of cooling perhaps taking place through the equatorial part of the Pacific Ocean. But we are still at ENSO neutral. We're still more or less on the warmer side of ENSO neutral as well. I want to cast your eye down to what's happening off the coast of Chile. That's Chile just there. And we've got quite a bit of cold water gathering down there. Now, sometimes when you get either cold water gathering off the coast of Chile, or indeed when you get warm waters gathering off the coast of Chile, that can be a precursor to what's going to happen in the ENSO region. So to see cold water sort of gathering a little bit down there, albeit not at a very intense level of cold at the moment, but see cold and average sea surface temperature anomalies beginning to gather down there, it's possibly a sign that we might see the ENSO region shifting more towards maybe a La Nina type setup by the end of the year. It would be interesting if that did happen. This is what the subsurface temperature anomalies are looking like. So these are the sea surface temperature anomalies, as I say. This is on the surface of the equatorial Pacific Ocean, but this is showing how things are looking at depth. So what you have to think about this is that kind of like up here, essentially in this part, we've got kind of like the surface of the equatorial Pacific Ocean along there from 80 degrees west here. And then we go down lower and lower to the depths of the ocean, if you like. The lower down we go on the chart, the deeper we're going in terms of the subsurface of the equatorial Pacific Ocean. So on the surface, we already know it's pretty warm on the surface still, and that's backed up by what's happening just underneath the surface, where we've got all of this yellow here and a little bit of orange as well just underneath the surface. So that's telling us that we have got slightly warmer than average subsurface temperature anomalies just below the surface of the equatorial Pacific Ocean. But if we go deeper down into the lower depths of the equatorial Pacific Ocean, you can see that actually we haven't really got all that much underpinning those sea surface temperature anomalies or subsurface temperature anomalies. So yes, we do have a little bit of warmer than average subsurface temperature anomalies there, but there's nothing really that would suggest underneath the surface that we're going to be going into a warm event anytime soon. There's no real depth of warmth taking place underneath the surface of the extra-Pacific Ocean. Actually, we do have some blue here that's colder than average subsurface temperature anomalies. But again, there's nothing to suggest that we're going to go into a cold event either. It just looks as though we're going to stick around ENSO neutral. If you just look at that and take it on its own terms, it looks like really we're going to stick around ENSO neutral for the foreseeable future, because there's nothing going on underneath the surface that would suggest we are going either into a La Nina or into an El Nino type event. However, the SOI is interesting. Now, this is the Southern Oscillation Index, and it's an index that's reflecting the pressure setup, the barometric pressure setup between Darwin in Australia and Tahiti in the Southern Ocean. So what you need to know with the SOI, the Southern Oscillation Index, is that when it's negative, the SOI is telling us that the atmosphere is in a state that's reflecting El Nino. However, when the SOI is in a positive state, so you have positive numbers, that tells you that the atmosphere in the southern equatorial Pacific Ocean, or in the southern Pacific Ocean, the atmosphere is reflecting a La Nina, a cold event type setup. This is from the Bureau of Meteorology. You can go all the way back to, very interesting, go all the way back to 1876, can you believe, with the SY. Remember, this is an index that's reflecting the pressure distribution in the Southern Ocean, and tells you when there's El Ninos and La Nina events taking place. So you can go a very long way back and see, for example, what the ENSO setup was like for winter of 1878, 1879, very cold winter, of course, for the UK and Europe, famously bitterly cold. I'm off on a tangent with that. Let's come back to this year. So this SOI number, you find this the link to this on the links page, by the way. So the SOI number for June came out at minus 10.4. That's really quite a negative number, and it is indicative of an atmospheric setup that would have been reflecting El Nino in the Southern Ocean through the course of June 2017. But if we come back to or come down to the preliminary numbers in terms of the SOI from the Bureau of Meteorology, you see that July has been very different. Now, I haven't got the finalised number for July yet, but I've got a feeling it's going to be significantly closer to positive than June's was, certainly. So at the start of July, yes, we did still have a few days of negative SOI numbers, -7, -15, and -8, but the change really took place on the 4th of July when we went to plus 8.31, and since then we've had a lot of positive numbers. So the 5th comes out at plus 12, the 6th at plus 9, the 8th at plus 12 again. Now we move down to the 11th and the 12th. We get a couple of negative numbers, -13 and -1, just for those couple of days. So remember, when it's negative, the atmospheric setup is indicative of El Nino. But coming further down, we see that, again, more very positive numbers. The atmosphere is swinging towards a La Nina state, so plus 13 on the 14th. On the 19th, again, plus 13, and then very, very positive on the 20th and the 21st, coming out at plus 25 and plus 27, respectively. We carry on down, and we still have generally positive numbers in the past few days. So 22nd comes out at plus 14, 23rd comes out at plus 5, 24th at plus 2, one negative day on the 25th, at -4, but then back to positive again, 26th, 27th, 28th, plus 1, plus 4, and plus 11. I think when we get to the end of the month and we get July's number, which will be placed just here, I've got a feeling July is actually going to be a positive number. So we'll have had the negative number in June, minus 10.4, but this, I think, it's going to be a positive number, and this tells us that the El Nino signal that we did have back through June and a little bit further back than that earlier in the year, the El Nino signal that we had then has failed. It's a failed El Nino, I think, and we could possibly be heading towards more of a La Nina type setup, although as we saw at depth in terms of the subsurface temperature anomalies, there isn't anything particularly cold at depth yet, so we're going to struggle to go into a cold event. But certainly I think July's SOI is going to be significantly more positive than we saw in June. And that's quite unusual, and it certainly puts the spanner in the works to get an El Nino going. Right, we better pull out and have a look at some models then. So this is how the CFS V2 is forecasting things to go through the remainder of the year. So this is where we are right now in terms of the sea surface temperature anomalies for the central part of the Equatorial Pacific, which is region 3.4. And as I said, we're around ENSO neutral, just about on the positive side. But you see from this black dash line what the model is doing, and it's actually cooling things off through the rest of the year. These are the temperature anomalies on the side, and these are the dates on the bottom. So this is the start of 2018, January 2018, just there. And you see through the rest of the year, the model is trending down almost towards the La Nina setup. Now, I don't think we would actually get a La Nina designated there, because we wouldn't be at the required threshold over 5 tri-monthly periods. But nevertheless, it is signalling that we are cooling things down through the rest of the year from where we are right now, which again, I'll remind you, we're around there. Through the rest of the year, we see things gradually cooling off in terms of the sea surface temperature anomalies in the central part of the Equatorial Pacific Ocean, so that by the end of the year, we are very close to a La Nina type temperature, which is minus 0.5 degrees that we see just there. So certainly no El Nino, possibly shifting in fact from where we are now, which is ENSO neutral on the warmer side, to ENSO neutral on the cooler side. And I suspect what the CFS is doing, it's reacting to what's been going on recently in terms of the atmospheric pressure setup, which we're just looking at from, of course, the SOI. Now, this is how the model was seeing things a couple of months ago. This was back in March, how the model was forecasting things to go. And you see it's very different back then. The model was actually going for a weak El Nino event. So you see how the black dash line is rising up here to go to around +1 above average in terms of the anomaly, and then sticking there for the rest of the year. So quite a dramatic shift has taken place from March, when we was having a forecast from CFS V2 for a weak El Nino, to now in July, where we are signalling, if not a La Nina, a very weak La Nina, certainly going down to ENSO neutral on the cooler side. This is how the ECMWF is seeing things over the coming few months. So again, this is the region 3.4, which is the central part of the Equatorial Pacific Ocean. This is the region 3.4 forecast. We've got the dates on the bottom, temperature anomalies on the side, and we can see that essentially the model is still where it was last month, which is generally around ENSO neutral again. So you've got the outliers up here. They are sort of El Nino events up there, and then we've got a few La Nina events taking place down there. Those are the outliers, but in terms of the broad trend of model, where most of the members of the ensemble plume are, they are generally in sort of an ENSO neutral condition, albeit perhaps a little bit on the warmer side. So a little bit of disagreement between the ECMWF and the CFS V2. The CFS V2 wants to keep things at ENSO neutral, but go down onto the negative, the colder side. ECMWF wants to keep things at ENSO neutral, but have them on the warmer side. So there is a little bit of disagreement there, but they are both sort of in the ballpark of being ENSO neutral going through to the end of the year and the start of 2018, which is just there. Jamstec is also now going for ENSO neutral condition to persist. So this is again the region 3.4, which is central part of the Equatorial Pacific Ocean. Temperature forecast, sea surface temperature anomaly forecast, dates along the side, I should say temperature anomalies along the side, dates along the bottom, and you can see that's where we are right now, and the model wants to keep things at that level or even a little bit below, but you can see that by the red line, which is kind of like the trend line for the model, and that's staying underneath the El Nino threshold, which is that number just there, 0.5 plus 0.5 degrees. So all models are in agreement to be keeping things at ENSO neutral over the coming few months through to the end of the year and the start of 2018. A little bit of disagreement between the CFS, which wants to have things at ENSO neutral on the colder side of neutral, and the ECM and Jamstec, which wants to have it at ENSO neutral on the warmer side. Again, been a big shift from Jamstec over the past few months. So this is how things were looking back in April when the model was actually going for a strong El Nino event at the end of the year. There was a few reports in papers about we might have another Super Nino. That definitely is off the table. If we was just about somehow or other to get ourselves to El Nino, it would be one of the weakest El Ninos ever recorded. I don't think we're even going to do it. I think we're going to stay ENSO neutral. But just 3 months ago, Jamstec was going for a strong El Nino event. So quite a shift there from the Jamstec model. As we see from all the models, really, they were all going back in the spring for an El Nino event of varying sort of degrees. Now, the last year that this happened, that we had an unravelling of El Nino through the course of the year, so it never really got going, was in the year of 2012. So I'm just going to show you the CFS V2 region 3.4 forecast from July 2012, and you can see that in July 2012, let's just scroll down again a little bit, you can see that in July 2012, the model was forecasting a moderate El Nino for 2012-2013. See that from the black dash line going up to that level. That's a moderate El Nino event. It was predicted that things would cool down, but still staying into the end of 2012, but still staying within that level of an El Nino through to the winter of 2012-2013. How it actually turned out, and this is the forecast from CFS V2 from December 2012, how it actually turned out is that the El Nino failed. We did just about crawl up to an El Nino threshold there, but then it all collapsed, and we actually finished up by the end of 2012 and into 2013 with the model forecasting a really weak La Nina event to take place. Now, we didn't get to La Nina for 2012-2013, but we did go down to ENSO neutral on the cooler side. But the interesting point is that this was a failed El Nino year, because all models, and it wasn't CFS on its own, all models through the middle part of 2012 were predicting an El Nino for 2012-2013, and it very much collapsed, and we finished up on the colder side of ENSO neutral in the end for the winter of 2012-2013. This is how it happened. So this is the sea surface temperature anomaly from June, from 25th of June 2012. And you see all this warmth that we've got here over in the eastern part of the equatorial Pacific Ocean, all those warm sea surface temperature anomalies. That is the signature for El Nino. We've never got to that level, to be fair, at any point through the last 2 or 3 months. We haven't got quite to that level. But that's how things were looking in June of 2012. In July of 2012, actually, the sea was strengthening. So this looks really good for an El Nino to be taking place. But there are a couple of flies in the ointments. One is up here, all of these cold sea surface temperature anomalies that we have to the north of the equatorial Pacific Ocean. That's the signature of the cold PDO. 2012 was a significantly cold PDO. And of course, you'll notice, again, very similar to what's happening this year, have all of these cold sea surface temperature anomalies off the coast of Chile and stretching out into the central part of the Southern Ocean. Nevertheless, despite being cold on either side of the equator, the actual equator itself, equatorial Pacific itself, looked really good in July of 2012 to be going into an El Nino event. But then look what happens in August. We don't see any warming from July to August, as you would normally expect in an El Nino. You'll keep lifting up the sea surface temperature anomalies from around July right way through to Christmas. It reaches its peak in December around Christmas. So you would normally expect August to be warmer than July in terms of those sea surface temperature anomalies. But no, actually August is a slight reduction in the temperature compared to July, or in fact quite a significant reduction in terms of the temperature from July to August. And then this continues to September. Notice in September, not only has the El Nino stalled, we're beginning to go the other way slightly. We begin to get some little splotches of blue starting to appear along the equator. Definitely by September we knew, September 2012, we knew that El Nino was in big trouble, and that we probably wasn't going to get El Nino. And that was confirmed then as we go through into the autumn. This October, this is November. You see a complete failure of El Nino through the second half of 2012. We finish up looking like that in December of 2012. We're at ENSO neutral, and possibly slightly on the cooler side of ENSO neutral, if anything. As I say, we didn't have a weak La Nina for the winter of 2012-2013, but we did go on to ENSO, the cooler side of ENSO neutral. Now, I'm giving you that little history lesson because that's the last time that we had a failed El Nino, that the equatorial Pacific wanted to go into an El Nino. We saw that very clearly in those earlier charts through June and July of 2012, but it failed, and we actually swang back into the cooler side of ENSO neutral by the end of the year. We're probably going to do something very similar to 2012 this year. The only difference, I think, is that we didn't really get up to a sustained El Nino threshold through the earlier part of the year this year, as we did in 2012. But in some ways, there are similarities here between 2012 and 2017 in terms of the failure of El Nino and possibly heading in towards ENSO neutral on the cooler side by the end of the year. Can't guarantee we're going to be at ENSO neutral on the cooler side. We've only got CFS saying that's what's going to happen. The other two models have to bear in mind, Tech and also ECMWF, they want to keep things on the warmer side of ENSO neutral. So we'll know a little bit more about that next month. The CFS might be overreacting a little bit to what's happened this month with the SOI, the Southern Oscillation Index. But it's all very interesting because, of course, 2012-2013 was our last colder than average winter. I'm sure you can see where I'm beginning to go with this. So maybe when we get to winter updates, and we're going to be starting very shortly in September, when we get to those winter updates, we'll have to think a bit about what happened in 2012 in terms of the failure of El Nino, and see whether there's any lessons to be learned from that for the winter of 2017-2018. Gone on a little bit longer than normal for this ENSO update. It's all very interesting. I hope you found it informative. As I say, next month, this will be a penultimate ENSO update. Next month, we'll have the final ENSO update for 2017. Because after that, we won't need to do them anymore because we will incorporate all of this stuff into winter updates from September. So one more ENSO update to come next month. Come back for that, and then we'll be off and running with the winter updates in September. Right, we're nearly at 28 minutes. Let's just let the clock tick up to 28 minutes, and then I'll sign off. Don't forget to check out the weekend forecast, and tomorrow, of course, we are doing that season 1 roundup for the autumn. Right, that's it for now. Thanks for watching.